Okay, fantastic. So thanks everyone that has joined us today for our seminar or webinar, I should say, on how to conduct management review. That's just about 1 minute past, so I'm going to crack on. Hopefully we've got everyone that had the intention of joining. Okay, great. So my name is Kim Van Dier, and I've been working with QMS for about 3.5 years now. This is my second webinar. They do seem to be quite popular. I think people enjoy a bit of, just a little bit of added value perhaps, and some really sort of close focus on aspects of management systems that perhaps people don't always get correct the first time. So as I say, management review is one that keeps coming up and has always proved quite popular as a webinar subject before. I used to be a quality manager in real life, if you like, before I joined QMS. I had an assortment of senior quality roles in industry. I suppose really since, oh my goodness, I won't tell you how long or you'll guess how old I am, but a couple of decades at least, let's just put it that way. I work on standards like 9001, 14001, 45001, 27001, 33201, which is the new business continuity standard. 31,000, which is on risk management, 44,001, which is collaborative working, and PIMS as well, the Privacy Information Management System, which is British Standard 10.0012 for people that are familiar with that. That's a bit more of a rare speciality. So basically what we're going to do today, the presentation itself will last between 20 and 30 minutes. If you think of questions that you would like to put to me during the presentation, can we ask that these get submitted by clicking on the question mark in the chat box? So you can stick your question in there, and we have a moderator working with us. He will basically feed me the questions in order so that we can address all of those after the presentation. Hopefully, if I do a good job, there shouldn't be an enormous number of questions, but then maybe you have lots of things that you want to talk to me about, in which case, fantastic, we'll get stuck into those. As I say, last time we did this webinar, there was really quite a big volume of questions, so don't be shy. As I say, please do click on the link, click on the question mark and give me some questions, put me on the spot. Also to say, yeah, we're going to make our slides available to all attendees within 24 hours of the webinar going out as well. So hopefully that will just save anybody and too much kind of scrambling around, sort of taking notes. Okay, fantastic. So just going to give you an overview of what we're going to cover today. So basically, we're looking at what is management review. You've probably got a bit of an idea, but we'll delve into that in some more detail. We're going to talk about what part management review plays in running a management system. We'll concentrate on 9001, although most standards, certainly all the sort of commonly used ones, have an element of management review contained therein. As I say, it's pretty fundamental, I think, to all of the standards. We'll base it around 9001, and if we have questions, perhaps relating to other standards, again, quite happy to take those afterwards. So we'll look at also who's maybe going to be involved in running that process. People tend to have some weird and wonderful ideas about who actually needs to get involved, so we can address any questions like that. Thinking about the detail, so how do we actually do it? How do we do management review? We've got a template which I'll share with you again during the presentation, which will help you make sure that you cover off all the required elements. I always say that management review is a prescriptive activity, and very often when people fall down, it's because they have not appreciated that. They just haven't quite gotten their heads around the fact that there's a really standard list of items to cover. They all need to be covered at planned frequency and the results recorded. Sometimes organizations have done stuff like they've had a bit of an operational review, or maybe they always do operational reviews and they just wrote some stuff down, and then they'll give that over to the auditor come annual surveillance audit, and they'd be really surprised when the auditor says, this is great, but you haven't covered the whole agenda and you haven't done it often enough. So do you have anything else you can show me, or are you going to end up with an NCR? Hopefully not. But as I say, that's really what that's about. Okay, what else will we have a think about? Okay, so management review, as I've said, it's quite a structured activity. As I say, it is prescriptive. To an extent, you can set the frequency yourself, although your consultant at the time that your system was put in place will probably have given you a strong steer as to how frequently your management review activity should take place. Small companies can perhaps get away with doing it a little bit less frequently, but if there's a lot of change in your organization, or if you have very complex processes, or for an assortment of other reasons, you might end up doing management review more frequently. We say at least once a year. Once a year would be the absolute minimum. I would suggest that it's going to be helpful to you. Your management review process should say how often you're supposed to carry out the activity. It is an essential part of management system maintenance. I mean, I would suggest it's probably the most fundamental bit, because folk who know are going to look at your system and go, yes, it's still the right system. Yes, it's still doing the right things. Yes, it's still helping us achieve our desired outcomes and objectives. And if not, those are going to be the people who will say something needs to change. These are the resources that are required. This is what we're going to do next. So that's why it's such an important part of running the management system itself, to prevent it basically running itself into the ground, or not being adequately resourced, or no longer being fit for purpose, or the organisation has moved on and the system perhaps hasn't been updated to reflect that. So as I say, it is super important. We really think about the effectiveness of your management system. So in other words, are we still compliant with the system? And indeed, is the system still doing the right things, covering the right areas? Has the scope changed? Have we started doing new activities that perhaps we hadn't done before? Do processes need to change? Do things need to be updated? Does the scope need to be updated? Things like that. So that's really quite fundamental to what management review does. When we've said that it checks if the system still fits with the business, again, this is where thinking about strategic aims and objectives, and perhaps the alignment of the quality objectives, how that all fits together. So it's quite a high level activity, and it's why typically we want to get board members involved, and we want to get people, I suppose, with a lot of clout in the organisation and that kind of level of strategic overview involved. But we also want the people who actually carry out the daily processes and are involved in the kind of day-to-day grind of the organisation. We want to get them involved too. So I think what I'm saying is everybody can get involved and should get involved, but it should probably never exclude all the senior management, because then it's going to be very difficult to get buy-in if indeed you do want to try and push through changes, or if you want to get more sort of resource allocated to the system or anything like that. Hopefully that makes sense. We talked a little bit there about using the management review to, I suppose, create really, really good visibility from the top of the organisation down to how things are really running. When we carry out management review, we'll look at lots of different types of documentation, things which give us an insight into how the company is working, or the organisation, and how the management system is working as well. Some of the things that we'll look at will be internal audit, for example, or inspections, or any nature of sort of compliance checking, inspection activity, anything like that, because these are, I suppose, basically these are clues, hints and tips to senior management as to how the organisation is running. It's not great if we come to management review almost thinking, right, okay, what are we going to look at? What we'll touch on later is this idea that we basically furnish attendees with a lot of information before they even get started, so that they're probably beginning to have those thoughts. We know the management, I don't know, well, let's try and give a good example, or something that you do see quite often. Let's say that we are already aware the internal audit programme has come to a bit of a grinding halt. So immediately senior management might be having that thought, well, what's going wrong? Do the auditors not know what they're doing? Are the auditors so busy doing their day job that they don't have time to audit? Is there some other substantive reason? Are auditees being obstructive? Or are audits not being able to be carried out? What's going on here? So we just try and basically bring together all that information, or as much as we possibly can, so that we can carry out basically review and evaluation. So hopefully that makes good sense. So in order basically to ensure that we can have as good a discussion, get as much value as possible. We've talked about this scenario of gathering data. And I've given a little list here of the sorts of things that we might bring along. So minutes of previous meetings. Chances are it's probably not the first time that management review has taken place. So we'll have something to go on. And last time around, we would have done an assessment of the same agenda points. And chances are we probably had some actions coming out of that. So we'll look at things like the status of actions. If we had 20 actions to carry out and 19 of them haven't been done, that's not very good. But hopefully people come to the meeting having said, yes, this was what we looked at last time around. Where are we at now? Have we moved on? Management system documentation. So again, this could be a set of processes that live and connect. It could be a manual. It could be work instructions. It could be literally any kind of form of documented information, things which your organisation deems necessary to run the management system. Internal and external audit reports. So this scenario that I was talking about just there, if indeed your internal audit programme is up and running and is delivering some findings, hopefully those findings are good. If they're not good, then chances are senior management would like to know about that so that they can take action accordingly. If you've had an external audit from QMS or another certification body, that would be the scenario again. How did we do? So an external audit is basically there to give you a completely dispassionate view of the compliance of your system. Hopefully that was a good audit, lots of green ticks, no crosses, no NCRs. But again, if there were sort of serious shortcomings raised, that's exactly what senior management want to know about so they can take action to help improve things. Records, yep, again, documentation, completed forms, you name it, really anything that you deem important or relevant here. It could be information on trends within the business, KPIs, adherence to SLAs. Again, this is different for every business, but it's just, again, thinking that we want to try and get as much information in as we possibly can before we start sitting down and making decisions. The register of legal and other requirements. Yep, so if you keep a legal register or you get guidance and advice on statutory requirements, health and safety requirements, employment law, things like that, what management review should be looking at is basically, has anything changed? Do we need to do anything different? So in other words, health and safety legislation changes a bit less frequently. You will get changes, but again, there's things which might come in terms of environmental requirements, maybe waste management, that whole gambit of something's changed in legislation. Do any of our processes need to change? So huge amount of stuff that could be in there. Again, it depends very much what your organisation is like. Whether or not you handle, you've got a lot of involvement in COSH or REACH or anything like that. But again, there's quite a lot on there. Complaints analysis. So if you've had customer complaints, anything like that, we would probably think about that under the kind of non-conformance and corrective action side of life. Hopefully clients are all happy and products are performing wonderfully and processes are all good. So there's nothing to complain about. But again, we're just going to think about that and try and see if we can perhaps pick up any themes that are coming out of it. Are products malfunctioning? Are service technicians not turning up on site when they should? Are things late? Are things wrong? What's the nature of the complaint? Again, just to try and pull out any trends. Corrective and preventive action. So again, this is kind of tied to complaints, and it's this scenario where basically where things go wrong, you'll have the requirement to record that somewhere in the system. So you might be using an NCR tracker or log or separate NCR forms or a defects analysis system if you're a manufacturing company. Again, it just depends what your organisation is like. But we basically have a list of stuff that went wrong and a list of stuff of the way we fixed those things that went wrong, basically. So we're looking at corrective action so that over time we can review whether or not we did the right things to fix the problems that came up. That's basically exactly what that's about. Policy review, yeah, again, so if it's for 9001, we're thinking about reviewing the quality policy. If it's for 14,001, obviously environmental. 27,001, we're potentially looking at reviewing a suite of policies relating to information security. So as I say, there's quite a lot to do, perhaps before we just crack on and start that meeting. I always think it's quite good to try and make management review meetings as interactive as possible. It shouldn't really be a one man or one woman show. As I say, sometimes you kind of almost have a bit of a roundtable discussion at the start, mid, or maybe even at the end if everybody's still got the strength about kind of related topics, again, just to try and get people's engagement and keep people switched on with the activity, because it is critical, but it is also potentially technical and a bit dry, and we want to try and make people engaged and interested and awake. So as I say, that's the sort of stuff that we would try and do there. Thinking about, other things that would come up, changes to internal and external issues affecting the running of the management system. The classic one, we're in the grip of a global pandemic just now. We perhaps couldn't have predicted even a year ago that we would still be in it. That's impacted things like risk assessment and ways of working and operational delivery, all of these things. So that impacts on how we're servicing our interested parties, maybe the context of the organisation, maybe the markets that we work in. There's Brexit as well. Do we have European exposure? So there's a huge amount that we could really think about here. So here's one that we made earlier. I've got a template which I'm going to share with you. We have this on an Excel spreadsheet. If you are a Connect user, you'll have a Wizzy online version of this, which is very easy to just jump into and complete. And then year after year, you just basically pull down a fresh template and complete that according to the findings of your management review. As I say, for the purpose of today, I am just going to show you this, which is how it looks in a not Wizzy Excel spreadsheet. So basically here, it's really prescriptive as well, just to make sure that we capture all the information that we want to, and so that we can create a permanent record of the meeting. So we basically say, when did it take place, who came, and then we've got some of this. This is like the crib sheet as well. So basically, what are we preparing? What are we going to have in advance? And then what materials are we going to bring along and make available? So very similar to the kind of list that we talked about. I don't think there's anything additional on there. That's fine. And again, why are we doing this? Why are we carrying this out? So we're basically going to look at the management system to make sure that it's still suitable and sufficient, that it still meets the needs of the business. Effectively, are we applying enough resource? Are we doing it right? Do things need to change? That's exactly why we're doing management review. Literally, management systems don't run themselves. They do need input from senior management and really anybody involved in running the management system itself. Okay, fantastic. So just looking quickly down our list of agenda items there. So status of actions from previous. As I say, I alluded there to the 20 actions raised. Hopefully 19 are complete, not incomplete. But as I say, again, that maybe just gives a bit of an indicator as to how engaged people are, if lots of things have perhaps been left over from the last time, but hopefully not. We talked there about evaluation of trends in the requirements of relevant external parties. So chances are, if you keep an interested parties log, you're probably going to fish it out and say, does this still look right? Are there things that we need to add? Are there things that we need to take away? For example, do we now subcontract where historically we didn't? Are we going to add subcontractors on as a list of significant interested parties? That would be one example. There we can get a bit more sophisticated and think about perhaps trends in the requirements. So people might now be looking, for example, for all appointments to be delivered remotely. Do we have the IT to support that? Are people accustomed to using Teams or other platforms? Can we still meet the needs of interested parties, even though times are a bit unusual? Using the pandemic as an example there. This presentation will probably date quite quickly. There you go. Well, I hope it will. Okay, fantastic. So we thought about this idea of evaluation of what we're doing now with legislation as it applies. So if something changes, then do we need to take any action? What else have we got here? Yeah, so all the standards now basically have got risk and opportunity management as quite a keynote item. Again, How you manage risks and opportunities within your organization will vary a bit. You might have a risk register, you might have done SWOT or PESTLE analysis. Again, there's lots of great templates, online templates again in Connect, if that's going to help you fill those out. But basically we think about what are risks, how likely are they to happen, and how severe would they be if they did happen? And then we basically take a judgment. How do we mitigate those if indeed we can? Fantastic. What else have we got? Evaluation of trends and changes, to service provision. So basically, what does our documentation tell us? What do we believe the implications to our product offering might be arising from that? Do things need to change, and is change being adequately managed? Are we meeting our objectives? So as part of running the management system, one of the things you're required to do is to set objectives, and then those will align hopefully with the overall organization's kind of aims, targets, mission statement, whatever you have. And we're basically just saying, as objectively as we possibly can, have we met the required objectives? Did we do what we set out to do? And hopefully we did. And if we didn't, then we take a view on that and we say, okay, why not? Did we not have the correct resource? Did we not have the necessary will? Did something happen that prevented us? COVID-19 is an awfully good example, as I say, perhaps of companies not getting where they needed to be. They didn't achieve the growth that they anticipated because everybody was locked down for a year, or because you couldn't travel to different parts of the country, perhaps that they were hoping to develop the business in. So all of these things might be justified. If we haven't met our objectives again, so what we're going to do about that? Is the objective still valid, but do we need a longer sort of amount of time to try and achieve that again? Are we just going to move it forward a year? Are we going to perhaps set a new objective if indeed the old one has been superseded? Fantastic. Okay, so policy change there. Again, policies might change year to year. Do we have sufficient resource to run the management system? I mean, I suppose the one I alluded to earlier was auditors. Are they busier than a one-armed paper hanger? Do they not have time to audit? They're too busy doing their day job. Do we have appropriate resources, buildings, plant, equipment, IT systems, remote working arrangements, you name it, company bicycle, whatever it is you actually need to do the job? Fine. Evaluation of training, competence and knowledge management. Okay, so do staff have the skills that they need in order to carry out their functions adequately? And have we got good records of that? Again, that's a standard requirement. How are our suppliers doing? So external providers just basically means suppliers, could be subcontractors, but anybody effectively that you're buying goods or services from. Are they any good? If not, what are we doing about it? Are we binning them? Are we getting a new supplier? Are we going to work with them and try and help them improve? What's going on? So thinking there about conformity of products and services. So are we getting better or worse at what we do to make money effectively? Are we getting more complaints? Are we getting more sales? Are we getting negative feedback, positive feedback? Again, this just depends on how your organization is doing. Customer satisfaction, again, that's another good one. Do our customers love what we do? Hopefully. Do they give us information about things they might like to buy from us in the future? Hopefully they do. Again, we can potentially act on that. Keep going down. So thinking about trends in non-conformance and the effectiveness of corrective action. So when problems arise, do we do the right things to fix them? Over time, broadly, are we fixing problems such that they stay fixed or not? So again, this is when you almost just need time to pass, because we don't know whether we committed too much or too little resource to something until some time has passed and we say, well, did that problem ever recur? Hopefully it didn't. If it did, and we already spent a lot of money trying to fix the problem, we might have to say, well, we need to try something else. We threw money at it and it still didn't fix it, but maybe that wasn't the right solution. Looking at the outcomes of internal and external audits. Again, we spoke about that earlier. Considering opportunities for improvement. So this is really what we're trying to achieve by running management systems, getting better at what we do, being better at meeting client requirements, getting more efficient, saving money, being streamlined, having processes in place which protect the environment, again, if it's a 14,001 system, protecting data if it's a 27,001 system. As I say, lots of other good things there. And then any other competent business, last item on the agenda there. So I've blasted through that really quickly, but I suppose it's just by example. There's so much. That's a vast agenda. It's not scattergun. It's exhaustive. It's exhausting, some would say. But as I say, that's what we need to have covered. Doing less than that will just get you a minor NCR, so it's not worth it. Think about all the items on the agenda. Okay, so we've done the blast through effectively what we're going to cover off. Hopefully the scenario that we're going to reach some conclusions based on the evidence that we've seen, the discussion that we've had. Typically, I mean, how long would a management review meeting take? I would say for a smaller organisation, maybe between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours. For large organisations, I've seen these go on probably for over 3 hours. And I think that that's fine. I think there is a lot in the agenda. I don't think anyone would disagree. That's probably half a day's work, even if it is quite a small company. It maybe depends as well how many individuals that you've got involved in the meeting, because if literally this is the managing director and their quality manager, then it's going to be a shorter meeting than if you've got every board member in attendance. So I think probably just effectively act accordingly. As I say, some topics you'll probably pass through quite quickly. Policy review, again, if everyone's had a good read of the policies in advance, unless there's a lot of debate about changing policies, that's not going to take very long. Evaluation of service trends, I mean, you could probably spend a day talking about that and only that. So as I say, I'll leave that one as there's maybe no definitive answer to it. Anything else that we want to think about there? I suppose what we can think about is perhaps recording during the meeting. It's quite difficult to perhaps chair and take minutes, so you might involve an impartial minute taker. I think that's something which could be quite usefully done. What have I said? Yeah, noting down who's responsible for each action. So again, action tracking, don't let them slip off the hook. So if somebody, in other words, has said that they are committed to carrying out an action, if we record it at the time, then we circulate the minutes afterwards. It's quite difficult to have people then decide the fact that they didn't want to do the action, perhaps. So as I say, I quite like that idea. We get somebody involved who has no axe to grind, but just basically helps us keep records of what it was that we determined we would do. Okay, so thinking about after the meeting and what we've done next. So basically, hopefully as a result of having carried out that management review, we should have thought about ways that we can improve what we do. So our products, our services, maybe our means of engaging with suppliers. That's what we should have achieved. Hopefully we will. Preventive action. So we talk about, it's really more horizon scanning for risk now rather than preventive action as such. But we hope that through having an engaged, intelligent conversation about the management system, that we might be able to basically extrapolate from what we've learned so far and prevent issues coming up in the future. Again, that's kind of the holy grail. We're not only trying to fix problems, we're trying to have that all-seeing eye look into the future and preventing them arising. Revising business plans, yes, absolutely. So again, this is the kind of strategic piece and probably why you want senior management involved. So it's the scenario where we've set objectives for our management system and we're thinking about the alignment perhaps with the company's wider objectives and maybe the business development plan, where we want to go next. How is the business developing? So we might have something formulated again that's come out of the kind of management review piece, which might say we're absolutely brilliant at such and such an area, but we really need to work harder on this, that, and the other, and then we can develop some plans around that. We might want to change our quality objectives. Yes, absolutely. Or revise the policies, bring them up to date. Yep, absolutely. So what else can we think about there? I mean, I suppose the risk element to me, risk management and opportunity management, that's quite fundamental. It would be nice to think that as a result of the management review process, that we basically find new ways to identify and mitigate risks out. Some risks are extremely difficult to mitigate. Some risks are extremely difficult to see approaching. So as I say, we just do the best we can, just like everybody else. We might come up with new ways to market the business, to attract investment, business finance. Again, this is thinking more about the needs and expectations of our interested parties. We might think about new and better ways to retain staff. We might think of more effective ways to work. All of this good stuff hopefully will come out of management review. Okay, fantastic. Probably not a huge amount else to say on that subject. I can see questions are coming in thick and fast. Just a little set of links there. So as I say, we've got more materials, other videos and things that we've set up there, again, which will talk you through how to do management review, talking about ISO certification, again, if this is something in a new area or something that, again, that you're looking to sort of move forward on. And that's basically it. So we'll perhaps now have a little bit of a think about some questions. I'm just going to have a look. Here we go. Great. Okay, first up from Alan Baxter. As quality manager in a small company, 10 people, I sometimes have difficulty in getting the directors to action agreed improvements to the system. This is normally because they don't want to. They're busy with their day jobs as designers. Any thoughts? God, that's a really good question. I think the key is trying to get, I suppose, directors engaged. So in other words, give them a job, get them along, get them, I suppose, almost to be the puppet master, if you like, pulling the strings, get them involved with the meeting, make it seem like it's their idea. That's very difficult to do, but I think I'm super conscious of the fact in small organizations, sometimes the quality management system is like the last thing on the list. We don't really want to apply resource to it. We want to do as little work as possible, and we're really focused on this big important thing, which is the day job. But I think what you have to try and do is say, but look, the quality management system is the thing that will make you better at the day job. The two are interlinked. The quality management system is not this sort of poor soul that sits on the shelf. It should be absolutely fundamental and core to products and service delivery. Easy to say, hard to do, but I suppose that's probably how I would approach that particular issue. Okay, and from Nirmal, we've got, what can you do if senior management are not taking quality management systems seriously and have enrolled merely to meet the expectations of clients who require their supply chain to have this accreditation? Really, really common problem. I think the scenario is really since the 90s, everybody has had lots of management systems and the expectation is that we have them. We may not always be fully bought into doing everything that we might do in an ideal world. So to an extent, we're doing the minimum to keep the certificate. I mean, I suppose this is where, if indeed they've, I suppose, thrown their hat into the ring, paid the money, got the accreditation, I mean, it may be that even if you're meeting the minimum requirements, if indeed you can demonstrate the benefits from just doing the minimum, and I suppose find ways to package those, and again try and get that kind of engagement from senior management, you might manage to get them to commit a little bit more resource along the way. I mean, I think there's lots of organisations like the Chartered Quality Institute who do events like Quality Week in November every week, which again, maybe you could use some examples for how other companies who are perhaps a bit like yours are using quality to drive up profits, you know, drive improvement, engage staff. That might be another way of approaching it. But as I say, I feel your pain. I think that there are organisations out there, unfortunately, who really almost don't want to play, you know, but my goodness, they want the certificate on the wall. Very, very difficult. But when you do get them one round, then, as I say, a tremendous benefit for you and something to be really proud of. Okay, another great question from Sarah. So who can do internal audits? Do you need training? If the previous person who set it up left with no instructions on how to conduct everything, what do you do? So this happens all the time. In terms of conducting internal audits, you don't need to be formally trained and qualified, but you do need to know what you're doing. And you probably need, ideally, to have shadowed maybe somebody else who's already done a bit of audit training themselves, if you're not going to go down the kind of qualification route. So what I would suggest is, first stop, have a look at the training videos that QMS make available. They live on Connect and Launchpad, although Launchpad will soon cease to be. But as I say, the training videos exist for you and they'll give you the absolute basics. If you read your internal audit process, you will absolutely be able to get an idea of what the activity involves, who needs to do what, maybe what the audit plan might look like. So I would suggest read the process, watch the videos. If you need a bit more support than that, QMS actually does do internal audit training. So we offer 1 and 2 day courses across a range of standards. So you could go down that route. Auditing is not difficult, but if you've never done it before, it's a bit challenging to know where to start. And I think also we don't know if what we've done is good enough. But again, we've got a technical support department, which if you've done an audit and you think, well, I don't want to do 12 that are all useless. I've done one and I think it looks okay, but I would just love to have some feedback from somebody who really knows what I should be doing. Then, as I say, you can communicate with QMS. I think it's isosupport@qmsuk.com, and you'll absolutely get some support. And as I say, it will tend to be, it's just via sort of telephone conversation, but we can book in a slot with you and just talk you through that if it's something which you're struggling with. Nobody is born knowing how to do internal audit, I can assure you. But as I say, there are ways to get good at it which don't necessarily involve spending a lot of money. If it's something that you enjoy, if it's something that the company sees a lot of value in, and maybe you're going to get involved in doing a lot of audit, it probably is worth doing a bit of formal training. And you can become qualified as a lead auditor as well. Again, if this is going to be a big part of your job. For most people, it isn't though. It's just internal audit. You do the system once a year, but you need to know what you're doing, but you don't need to be professionally qualified. So I hope that answers the question, Sarah. Okay, and from Stuart, is it a good idea to get all staff involved in the first business review after accreditation so that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet? I think that's an excellent idea, really just to get people on board, to let them understand what management review is all about. Yeah, I think that's an absolutely excellent idea. There will be people who, going forward, may sort of drop back from doing management review, but they'll have to audit it. So it is really helpful if they get a bit of a kind of view as to what should be happening and what records should be being kept. So yeah, excellent idea. Fantastic. Thank you, Stuart. How soon should we do a management review? As soon as you like. So I have met with only 1 or 2 companies who've basically done management review before I've even got to them to do their certification audit. That's really rare though, not everyone's that keen. Typically what people do is after the certification audit, you'll end up with a process which will say something like, management review should be conducted within 2 months of certification and thereafter at, and it will be intervals usually of 6 or 12 months. I say, why wait? Do it while everybody's still juiced up about it and everybody still remembers what to do. Or if indeed you attended a seminar or a webinar and you're enthusiastic and you want to start, working away on it now, then yeah, do it now. The most important thing, I suppose, really is cover all the points required and keep doing it. So management review is something that we'll do consistently. We'll build up a sort of a portfolio of knowledge coming out of management review over years that it's been conducted. So do it as soon as you like and don't stop doing it. Fantastic. Thank you, Sam. Any more for any more? We've run out of juice. Nope, we haven't. We're back. Deborah, would you be able to give an example of management system objectives and targets and how this differs from business targets? Yeah, absolutely. So some management system objectives and targets can be quite technical. And again, it depends very much on the standard that you're working toward. Business targets will often be a bit more commercial rather than technical. So your business target might be to grow the organization organically by 20% in any calendar year, or to break into the, I don't know, Asia Pacific market, or to, I don't know, offer remote working to all staff in field-based roles, or all of these things which are really about selling to clients and engaging with staff. Those are kind of more, I suppose, business targets. Management system objectives can be about the management system itself. So you can imagine a scenario where, again, so say for a safety management system, you might be aiming for, I don't know, 0 RIDDORs. I mean, we're kind of always aiming for 0 RIDDORs, but that's quite numerical and it's quite technical. It's just about the system itself. You can imagine a scenario where in a quality management system, you might say that we aim to close out or answer all NCRs raised within 7 days. That's a bit more technical and a bit more binary. So in other words, we either achieve that or we don't. It's quite measurable. That's probably quite a good objective. You can imagine a scenario as well where trying to pick something which is a bit more qualitative rather than quantitative perhaps, but you could have a management system objective which was all around engagement and empowerment of staff around, I don't know, say quality awareness or environmental awareness. How would you measure that? Well, you could test them, you could give them training, you could have toolbox talks and you could talk about it and you could kind of take the temperature in the room. Do people know what they're talking about, or do they not have a Scooby about what this QMS thing is? Never heard of it, don't know what it is. So I suppose what I'm saying is there's a bit of a continuum. But as I say, typically at the business end, it's maybe a little bit more commercially focused, and the management system end might be a little bit more about, well, effectively the management system itself, but there is a kind of continuum because effectively, I mean, everything we do within the constraints of a management system is to make the business better. And again, the business target might be, well, what does better mean? More profitable, bigger, more staff, acquisitions and takeovers, or all of, those good things, which are slightly more of a commercial bent. So hopefully that answers the question, Deborah. Okay, here we go. Can management review be split down over a number of sessions, i.e. do 25% of it monthly? You absolutely can. Be aware that your process should reflect what you do in the real world. So if your management review process says we conduct management review annually, you could break it down into 4 bits and do 25% of it. Well, I don't know, say like January, April, June, October, or something like that. You absolutely could do that. As soon as you're going to do that, just be super careful that bits don't end up dropping off or falling down the cracks. Because I suppose really you want to be able to be sure that at the end of the year, when the QMS external auditor comes in, you can, without stress or pulling lots of bits of paper out of filing cabinets or trying to marry up external electronic files, that you can easily evidence the fact you've done management review. So you can do that, but just be careful that nothing drops off the edges, if you like. And I hope that makes sense. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Tim. And Samir, can the internal auditor be the same person as the quality environment, health and safety manager? They absolutely can. I mean, in larger organizations, you can imagine where you've got a quality manager and you've got rooms full of auditors. Again, that's a dream scenario. It doesn't happen most of the time. Chances are in most smaller organizations, you've got a person who is quality, environment, health and safety, information security, I don't know, facilities management. Basically, it's the same guy or girl. Where it becomes a bit challenging is when you audit, you're supposed to not audit your own work, basically. So if indeed you are the operations manager, bottle washer, auditor, and quality manager, you get to a point where you're like, well, I did this. You know, I am the person who carries out this work activity and I am having to audit my own work. So all you can do is try and be as objective as you possibly can. We absolutely take cognizance of the fact that, you know, in small companies, there's a limited headcount. We need to do all the tasks. So we split it up as well as we possibly can. But as I say, yeah, sometimes that will absolutely be the case. So I hope that answers the question, Samir. Any more for any more. Here we go, and we're back to Tim. How long might a complete management review take for an SME? Often difficult to get the senior management team together for extended periods. Yes, I totally understand that. I mean, I was trying to pluck numbers out of the sky earlier when I was talking about management review. How long will it take? It usually takes a bit longer the first time because we're kind of feeling our way a little bit and going, okay, what does that mean again? Quick look up the book or have a quick go through the process, don't really know what we're supposed to be doing. I would suggest for an SME, I mean, if you had 2 hours, that should be fine if you've got all the information at your fingertips when you start. So in other words, you'll have some preparation time, pulling the documentation sort of together that you require to carry out the meeting. Should you be able to do it in 2 hours? I mean, yes, I think you should. It absolutely is difficult to get all the people in the room. What used to hold me back when I worked for a large civil engineering company was all the board members insisted on attending, and to get 5 very senior guys, and they all were men back in those days, £360 million organisation, you know, literally travelling the world, it was almost impossible. And that was when it ended up getting rescheduled. And you're like, well, we're just going to go ahead anyway. He's now sick. So we're going to go with 4 out of the 5. We could have done this 2 months ago. I could have got 4 out of the 5. And it is challenging. So what you might want to consider is, you know, if, say, for example, you had 3 board members, if we can get 2 of them in the room, is that enough to go forward? Because it absolutely is difficult. And time has this awful way of slipping past, and then you suddenly get to your external audit and you haven't done management review, and you've created an NCR, and then you feel maybe we should have pushed them a bit harder. Maybe we should have gone ahead without everybody there. So I hope that makes sense, Tim. Fantastic. Okay, lovely. Anyone else? Great. Okay, that's lovely. These are really good questions, some quite insightful thoughts there. Fantastic. Well, I think we might be done if nobody's got any more questions. As I say, we will send out slides to all attendees. As I say, thank you very much for your attention and involvement, and a set of really good questions at the end. That is super. As I say, if you have any other issues that you want to discuss, perhaps sort of not in the public forum, those can be addressed to marketing at qmsuk.com. And that's us. So again, hopefully see you at a future webinar, and thank you very much for attending. Great, thank you.